Hey, y'all, we have a really special episode for you today. There is a man, John Evans, who I met, uh, who first signed up for my email list. And after talking to him on the phone, I found out that not only did he go through conversion therapy, but he also was a small group leader for conversion therapy. And so we kind of talk about that journey and how he realized that, what he was living and teaching was wrong. So much courage, so much heart in this conversation. But I wanted to give you a heads up. There's some topics that might be hard to digest. We are going to be talking a little bit about suicide. We're going to be talking about different forms of abuse as well. So if this is an episode that you want to skip because of that, I completely understand, and I'll see you next time. That being said, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicide ideation, I urge you to call 988. You are not alone. Hello, my friends. Eric Feltes here, life coach, speaker, actor, and host of The Great Unbecoming. This is a show about stories of unlearning. What did you let go of in order to become the person you are today? And what did you gain and learn as well? This is a show about letting go of stories that no longer serve us and stepping into our own authenticity. It's about unbecoming what society says you should be and remembering who you are and who you are meant to be. So sit back, relax, and welcome to The Great Unbecoming. Brené Brown says that we are not here to be right. We are here to get it right. And I have such a courageous human being on the call on our podcast today. That exemplifies that in such a beautiful way of potentially not getting it right, but having that courage, not being right, but having that courage to get it right. John Evans was involved in Exodus International, which is one of the most popular conversion therapy camps that existed. And he led a small group. He is not in that place anymore. But y'all, can you imagine how much courage it takes to be a part of that movement and to reflect and to say, you know what, maybe I didn't get it right then, but what can I do to get it right now? I am so grateful that John has had the courage to be on this show. How many times can I say courage? I met John because he signed up for my email list, which y'all can do as well if you go to lifecoachingbyfeltes.com. I ended up calling him. I just wanted to make sure that he got the first email. And we ended up having such a beautiful conversation. And I thought, you know what? I need to share this conversation with the world. So I'm inviting you into this space with us, audience members, listeners. Listen with an open mind and an open heart. I know that you will be inspired by John's story. Mr. Evans, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, how you doing?
How you doing? How are you doing?
My New York is coming out.
Hey, I guess I pick up on accents without noticing it. Maybe I'm feeling a little nervous right now. How are you feeling?
Good.
Good. Thank you again for being here. I don't know if you've listened to any episodes, but these are super casual. We go where the wind takes us. So I would like to and I always tell people, listeners have heard me say this 1,000 times, I start with one question and I let you go, and then I rudely interrupt along the way. How does that sound?
That's fine.
Great.
That's fine.
So, John, this is the first time seeing you. We've only had one phone conversation, so it's just so fun and exciting to have this conversation and to get to know you a little more. I want you to start pre-Exodus, and I want you to start pre-married. I know that you were married and have children. Talk about maybe, start with your formative years. Start with when you knew, you weren't like the other boys. What was that growing up? What was that experience like for you?
I don't know. It was probably in 6th grade. So I don't know what age you are then.
Yeah.
But I remember being really attracted to my teacher.
Fun.
It was just like I didn't understand it.
Yeah, right.
But the other teachers were all nuns, so I guess that was,
Some people are into that, John.
Right.
So Catholic.
I knew, You're right. Yes,
Same,
very
same,
Catholic.
same.
And I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
It was just, and I just ignored it. Uh, it was also difficult because I grew up in a very abusive home.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I was sexually abused as a young child.
Hmm.
And it was after that my father started calling me faggot.
Wow.
So I don't, so to pinpoint anything, I don't know.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
it's,
I think you
but it
do
was
know.
that
I think you
always that.
you gave a great example, a great start.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So it was basically that. And as I got older, it became more prevalent,
sure.
the
Hmm.
attraction, to certain friends of mine, not every of all of them, but, certain ones.
Yeah,
So it was, basically, just growing up and not understanding what was going on.
sure. And there was no
Whether,
space for you to talk about it.
no, not at that time. No, not at all.
And for
You
your
know,
father to exclude to call you that word and to make you feel so unsafe in your own house, that was a message that you can't talk to your father about it.
right.
And if I
Right.
may, and I'm sure we'll get there with Exodus, I'm sure they highlighted on this as well. Um, there are two things, John, that I see in the comments often. One thing I see in the comments on my own videos is that I'm fatherless, that I'm an orphan. Um, and another thing I see often is, oh, I must have been molested. I must have been sexually
Right.
abused. For me personally, I was never sexually abused. And also, my father has always been very present and very loving in my life. And so it's a misconception that all gay people don't have fathers and have been sexually abused. Unfortunately, you have a different story. And so because of those myths, those dangerous lies, I'm sure that being abused and that having a father that well, also a father who verbally abused you, I'm sure that just added to the confusion about that.
It's it did, but I met people in Exodus like yourself that had great parents,
Hmm, hmm,
never sexually abused, and they were struggling. So I'm like, so why are they,
hmm.
So that started me questioning whether this whole Exodus thing was real or not.
Well, I
You
love
know,
that. I love that you met those people and they kind of helped you realize it did the opposite of conversion
it was
therapy
just like
almost.
I was like, yeah, if everybody was like me, I could understand it. But I was like, these people have, and then, the other leaders, this woman, Penny, would go, well, it must be somewhere deep inside that you were sexually abused. And they'd be like, no,
Right, right.
but it was a constant, like, that must be there, or, um, you must not be remembering, or you just blocked it out, or something like that. And I was
Yeah.
just like, maybe not. Maybe
Maybe not.
nothing ever happened.
Hearing you say that is that's so abusive and damaging, and it goes to show that people in Exodus, therapists in Exodus, y'all, if you're not watching on YouTube, I'm putting that in quotes, are not licensed therapists, because that is a very damaging, abusive practice to basically force feed a belief into a child, because then that child could be like, well, maybe I did. John, I'll tell you, when I hate saying this, but when I was growing up, I prayed to God, God, I know that my father has been in my life, so God, please unlock the memory from when I was abused that
Right,
clearly I have hid away, and how damaging and how brainwashing that is for people.
right. No,
Uh,
I thought it was ridiculous. Personally, myself, it's
yeah.
like, you're lucky you weren't sexually abused, or whatever. You're
I,
very fortunate.
I want your thoughts on this after having been a victim of that. My As a non-therapist, my guess is that the reason these myths have come about are for a couple reasons. One, I think that potentially many pedophiles latch on to vulnerable children, and they can maybe
Right.
sense that the children who are naturally gay are different than the other kids, so maybe they're more likely to be silent. And would you say that's, let's do one at a time, would you say that's accurate?
I would say that's accurate because that happened to me in the Boy Scouts.
Okay, okay.
There was the I don't mean to go off, but the assistant scoutmaster, who was a friend of my father, saw the abuse that my father would give me,
Yeah.
and he kind of like befriended me. I
Hmm.
was the only one in scout that he, took under his wing,
Yeah.
and I didn't know I was being groomed to become, more than just. Uh, so it was, I was only 13 at the time,
Wow.
so it was very confusing to me, and I looked up to this guy because, oh, he stood up to me. He stood up for me against my father, who was a raving lunatic,
Yeah.
and he was taking care of me, not realizing that he was setting me up.
Wow.
So it was like a year later that he molested me in a scout camp.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm so sorry, and thank you again for sharing that. I think it's so imperative that we hear your story because now I know my listeners know this, but it's important for us to be reminded abuse, sexual molestation does not make a child gay. It's really the
right.
opposite. We're targeted because of that.
And that's what was amazing. It was years and years later. I was at this Buddhist retreat, and I was saying that to somebody, and they said, "Did you ever think maybe you were just a gay kid that got molested?" And it was like the lights came on. I
Ding,
was
ding,
like,
ding.
"Oh
Yeah,
my!" I was like, "Oh yeah, that could be it."
makes so much sense, right?
But it was like, and I value myself as being somewhat intelligent and everything. And I was like, how was I stupid for so long?
Oh,
That
well,
I
well,
didn't see common sense, that this was. But once your eyes are open, it's just like, there's no going back to.
I'm sure you know this now, John, but let's remind you and remind the listeners you were not stupid for not knowing, right?
Right,
You were kind of born into the cult of innocence, uh, called this version of Christianity and grooming and the culture of Boy Scouts that you were a part of, right? Again, not all Christians, not all Boy Scouts. You understand what I'm saying, but it's easy. It's easy to be manipulated by groomers to believe that it's your fault, that you're bad, that you
right,
did something,
right,
that you're stupid, right? You
right,
were the victim. And again, I'm certain you know this, but it's important to say that for anyone else listening as well. You're not stupid.
no,
They know what they're doing.
right,
So thank you. So the other point is that, oh, you must have had an absent father. I get that all the time on my comments. I get the word fatherless or where's your dad or dad check or orphan, all these things. I have a great relationship with my dad, which to me personally, honestly, it tells me a lot more about the commentators than it does about me. It tells me that they probably have a conditionally loving father and they think that they must act a
right,
certain way in order to be approved of by their father. But I would like to say, y'all listening, if your father has abused you and you are gay, or your father has left and you are gay, you are not gay because they left or because they abused you.
right,
However, it shows the fragility and the fear from your father, and your father is not you.
right.
Um, I'm glad to hear that by being a part, ironically, by being a part of Exodus, you realize, oh, wait a second, you were starting to connect the dots in that way.
Right.
So that was 13. The damage kind of was done at that point. You got older. Let's fast forward a little bit to a little later in life when you met your wife. What was that like? And did you date women up until that point?
Uh, yes. In high school, because you couldn't not, you know,
Right.
you would have been considered, a fag or whatever, like, why doesn't he have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
So I always went, I was also very shy and very introverted.
Mm,
So it took me a while to, you know, uh, warm up. If I was drinking, I'd be fine because I started drinking at a very young age.
hmm.
Uh, but it was so I did, and then I met my wife, and we were friends for like a year.
Okay.
She worked in the same office as I did, and we were friends, and somehow we just started dating. Um, and then she was telling me some of her stuff, and I was telling her some, and I told her right away. I said, I struggle with this. I don't want to be gay, but I do have this, these feelings and stuff. So, because I wasn't, at the time, I wasn't thinking we were ever going to get married or
Hmm.
anything. And and then she told me about the sexual abuse she um, suffered under her father.
Hmm.
So, and it was almost like two broken people finding themselves trying to make one whole person.
Say that
Um,
again slower. Say that again.
it was two broken people joining together to make one whole person, and
Wow.
so it was basically that. I was rescuing her, she was rescuing me,
Yeah.
and it just, it just, that's why,
Yeah. That is just so profound. I
so
needed to hear it again. And I would add the word feel. I am getting very nitpicky with you, but two people who feel broken. I say this
right,
to myself,
right,
John, because sometimes I feel broken. I don't feel like a whole person. That's shame.
right,
Shame will make you believe that
right,
you're disconnected or that you're broken or that you're not enough. So, two people who feel as if they're broken, and you probably believed in a conditionally loving God. It's an if this, then that. If
right,
I marry this woman, then I will be loved. If I rescue her, that'll give me worth. That'll give me a
right,
reason to be on this planet, as opposed to just being
right. I'll be normal, I'll fit in.
fitting in.
a lot of my a lot of my life was just to fit in. I didn't want to stand out.
Mm,
I just wanted to, um, I used to say I want a white house with a white picket fence in a neighborhood where all the houses are the same, so
yeah.
no one would notice anything.
You wanted to
And it
just
was,
disappear, yeah.
yeah, it was just fit in.
So, did you
Um,
have that life with your wife?
pretty much,
Yeah.
pretty much.
And so, how did you evolve from, I think we're just dating, I have these struggles, to getting married?
I I don't. She was pushed. I don't want to say anything bad about, but she was very manipulative.
Hmm.
You know, um, I think we can all be manipulative, but after we were married, she wanted to get away from her father so bad. And then I'm like, so why is he over the house every night? It was just
Wow.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
That I thought you hated him. Why is he here? I hate my father. You don't see him over.
Wow.
So a lot of it was that, and I would have to put up with that. And the reason we stayed married so long was because I had children, and I didn't want my father-in-law near them. Because I didn't trust him with my children.
Sure. Sure.
Um, and she said, "Oh, he would never touch his grandchildren." I said, "Well, he should have never touched all of his daughters."
Period.
So so a lot of it was that. I don't want to say that I was an angel. I had an affair when I was like, we were married about 6 years, and I had an
Yeah.
affair with my boss of all people for about 2 years.
You love people in authority. First, your teacher when you're 13. Well, not you didn't have a crush on him, period, just a crush. And
Right.
then you're a boss. Look at you.
I know. Actually, my psychiatrist once said, he goes, "You have to stop picking people that represent your father."
I was going to say
He goes,
daddy issues.
he's a, he goes, including your wife. He
Mm.
goes, they're all these angry people that you pick, you know.
Well, we accept the love
And I
we
think,
think we deserve, as it says in the perks of being a wallflower. So maybe that's what
right.
maybe you thought you deserved nothing but an angry person with power.
Also, I knew how to handle an angry person with power,
And so
you
it made you
know.
feel important because I can handle this. I can tame this. I can
Right,
do this. I'm worthy of this.
right. I don't
Yeah.
know how to do it if somebody else isn't like that. Like, I had a hard time with my present relationship. Like, why isn't he yelling? Why isn't he screaming? Why
Hmm.
isn't he?
John, don't get too far ahead. I got to leave the
Okay, sorry.
audience members wondering if you're happy or not. Don't say it.
Okay,
Maybe he's
okay,
miserable, y'all. This could be a Lifetime movie. You never know. Commercial break. Okay.
right.
Okay. So then you had,
Sorry.
you should be. I'm kidding. So then you had three children.
4 children.
4 children. By the way, was that good? I was trying to yell at you to fulfill that fantasy. Was I angry enough, or do I need to be more angry at you?
No, you were good. You were good.
Okay, good, good, good. I don't do anger well. It's not true. I do anger very well in the car when no one's around, or like when
Right.
technology doesn't work. I like to say if technology doesn't work, that technology is homophobic. I like to
Right.
accuse other things, but I get very angry, but not, and I say heinous things, but not when anyone's around, just not at people.
Right.
Anyway, that's for my therapist, John, not for you. So, okay, so you, let's see, where were we? Had an affair. You're not an angel. I was engaged to a woman when I was 25. I cheated on her with a man. I, uh, I hold myself accountable for that. I wish I had handled things differently. And also, what else is true is that my cheating was a symptom of me living a closeted life. It's like if you shake up the Coke bottle too much, there's so much pressure, it needs to come out in some way, shape, or form. So when you don't
Right.
have a healthy, open, authentic life, those things will come out. Again, you and I could have done better. And
Right.
also, we are also at the same time victims of a society that said we shouldn't exist.
Right.
Particularly you more than me because you're a couple years older than me.
Yeah, quite a few
So,
years old.
well, you said it, not me. Just kidding. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit to you were married when you got involved in Exodus. What prompted you getting involved with Exodus?
Um, I had a religious awakening. I would say that, I was like really suicidal and everything and that's when I ended it with my boss and stuff. So I couldn't live this life it was two different lives I was living. I
Hmm.
was like this super gay guy, and then I was this, you know, altogether husband of two,
Hmm.
and at the time there was only two kids, and it just became such a burden, and I couldn't handle it. So
Hmm.
I tried to commit suicide, and luckily, obviously it didn't work,
Yeah.
and um, and I had this awakening, and I became very aware that God existed because I was an atheist before then. When I left high school, I was an atheist. I said, this is all bullshit.
Hmm.
Excuse my language, but it was. I didn't believe anything anymore. And then when I felt His presence, I realized, that there is a reason I'm still here.
Hmm.
You know, so I was, doing that. I was fine on my own, and then I kept on getting these crushes on people that were like, um, I had one with one of my brother-in-laws, and I said, "This is worse than Nick." When Nick was
Hmm.
the boss, I said, "This one is worse than Nick." I said, and there's no sex, but there was this emotional, what did they call it? Dependency on him.
Hmm.
That was it was I was a prisoner of it, and I
Wow.
I needed to break it. So my sister, in her infinite wisdom, said, "No, there's this group down the road that meets. Maybe you should go there." And that's what I did. I went there, and
Pause. I want to pause you. This is one of me
okay.
example of me rudely interrupting. I'm curious. I have thoughts, but I'm curious to know why do you feel as if you had this pattern of having crushes on the quote unquote wrong guys, the ones that you shouldn't have had crushes on, like your brother-in-law?
When I look back, they were all very angry people.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. I'm
um,
wondering.
he was
Yeah, please.
extremely angry and broken.
So that definitely lines up with your story. Is it possible that subconsciously you were trying to hit the eject button, and that subconsciously you were trying to destroy your marriage, like do something so bad that would be so unforgivable that because you didn't have the words to end it? Is that possible or no?
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. It's like, all right, how much crap can you put up with without because without doing something? Um,
I hear this a lot from clients and from people I talk to, and just stories of people in unhappy relationships or people where they're not, for better or for worse, they're just not happy in their current relationship. They try to self-sabotage because they don't know how to use the words yet. They find themselves attracted to people they shouldn't be, and it feels all consuming. When we are not attracted to our partner, when we are not really, really in it and connected and aligned with our partner, oftentimes, because attraction is normal in all relationships, you're going to be attracted to other people, but it's easy for shame to be compounded on top of that attraction when
Right.
you're equal, when you're also not happy with the person you're with. So it's like I'm hearing from you, John, shame on top of shame on top of shame. So,
Right. I was
which
very shame based.
yeah, and so that led you to sign up for my 4-step guide to break free from your people pleaser prison. But that's that's at the end of the story. So, but anyway, back to you. So you go to Exodus, which I like to say that my program and what I do is like the opposite of conversion therapy. It's
Right.
unconversion therapy. But
Right.
before you did that, I'm gonna uninterrupt you now and give it back to you. So you're getting involved in Exodus. And what happened
Right.
next?
And I was just going, and I realized I never felt like I fit in anywhere. And there I was like respected. I was almost um, uh, not put on a pedestal, but really more accepted. And I found my group,
You
um,
were seen.
which I had never had before. And um, and for me, that was a big thing because I always felt so inferior. I felt stupid, ugly. Um, and when I look back, I was like, that was really, why did you think all that?
Hmm.
But I was, because I was told that every day of my life. And even with my wife, getting married to her, I was like, somebody actually wants me. I better jump on this because I'll never find anybody.
Scarcity. It's the scarcity mindset. It's the I need to fit in.
Right,
I need to do X, Y, and Z in order to be good. And
right. And
and
that's basically
yeah, I keep hammering on Brene Brown. I talked about her at the beginning of this show, and what I'm seeing, and she talks about this, the difference between fitting in and belonging. Fitting in is kind of cutting off pieces of yourself to contort to the human being that society says you should be, which is what you did most of your life. Shame on top of shame on top of shame as a result. Belonging is being seen, feeling safe, and celebrated as and because of who you are and not in spite of who you are. So here you are in this group. Of course, you're not celebrated for being gay in this group, but ironically, it still gave you a sense of belonging because you were around other people who also felt broken and you didn't have to hide. You could actually talk about it.
right.
Ironically, what a healing part of your journey in a weird way.
Part of it was that's exactly how I feel. That a lot of it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, yeah,
It was just when it was just getting to the point where this is crazy.
yeah.
This is, the two people that ran it used to be partners. Now they still live together. They have a checking account together. Everything is the same. I said, you're like a married couple, but you're just not married. It was
Yeah.
just, and that was, they would fight and bicker and they'd be jealous of each other. And I'd be just like, and I'd be looking at them going, and you're leading this group, you know, like you can't, uh, and it was all these things that started like piling up in my head going, this isn't, working. And then I knew people in the Exodus that were, they kept on saying, oh, I've fallen and I had sex with this one, but then I repented. I said, but you're doing it like every week, you know?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think it's working,
I don't think it's working,
Uh,
friend. Yeah.
yeah.
That's why I say
Uh,
that Exodus doesn't conversion therapy doesn't work. Well, for several reasons. One, being gay is it's a part of us. It's not a choice. We are who we
right.
are, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's the main reason. But also, it's like it's a corrupt but also very smart business plan, right? Because you always need them, as long as they can continue to convince you that it's your fault that you haven't changed yet. You haven't prayed hard enough. Oh, it's because you slipped. That's your fault. Just keep praying, keep doing the work, keep repenting, and you'll be good. So you're continually going back.
Right.
Belonging is a basic human need. Sex is one tool that we can, activity that we can use in order to feel a sense of belonging. Of course, it can be abused as well, but our bodies are designed to crave sex because our bodies are also designed to crave a sense of belonging and connection. So we're cutting off that natural desire. And by cutting it off, it makes it even more unhealthy. The symptoms of cheating, as you've expressed, adding shame, oh, I messed up. So then what's the solution? Go back to Exodus. Therefore, Exodus becomes both the doctor and the sickness.
Right.
Ooh,
I totally agree.
that was
That's why
good. That was
that's
good, John. I got to pat myself on the back for that one.
yeah.
I'm going to write that one down.
That's
Thank
why
God
they
this
don't
is
exist.
recorded. That's why they don't
That's why they
exist.
don't exist anymore.
Well, they don't
They
exist,
closed down.
but several other
They're all
conversion therapies still do.
right.
Yeah. But
Right.
anyway, so you were a part of this group, and then talk about like how do you transition from. Actually, before we talk about your transition into more of a leadership role, can you share with us? Are you comfortable sharing some? Obviously there was a sense of belonging, but I don't want to paint the picture as it was all rosy and good. Like, what are some things that they had people do that might be have added to the shame?
My group really wasn't that bad, but then I went on to, have you ever heard of Journey into Manhood?
Heard of it?
Psychotic,
Hmm.
crazy people. They would have you like do these psychodramas where you reliving past events.
Mm,
Um, and they're not qualified people running these things,
right.
you know. Like I had to relive being sexually abused, and it was just, and it got so bad they had a, I went into like this state of like totally incoherency where they had to stop, take me out of the room and try to calm me down for like an hour. And it was just torture. It was,
Can
and
I
I was just like,
can I ask a question for
go ahead.
clarification? When they said have you reenact it, to what extent did they have you reenact your sexual abuse?
Well, they didn't, sexually abuse me, but setting the scene or you know, and it was more mentally,
So
and
visualize it and
physically. Yeah,
reenact it, relive
right,
it.
right,
Got it.
right. And
Got
have
it.
people playing these parts. They did it with that. They did it with my abusive father, where they had somebody playing my father, cursing at me and
Oh my
yelling.
gosh.
It was brutal. It was, yeah.
I heard
And actually,
store.
one of the
Mhm.
main people there, he was a psychotherapist. He's now living as a gay man.
Mm, mm.
So um, and so it's, but it was that was abuse, I think. you
I would
know
agree. Tell me if you've heard this or if you've experienced this. I've heard stories from clients where um, they make you not relive, but they make you explain in detail all of your most recent sexual experiences or sexual fantasies. How often you've masturbated, who you've thought of, what position you were, like detail in front of even minors, sometimes in front of grown audience of grown men.
right. They've never done that to me, but I've heard that happening.
Another thing I've heard,
My group was
yeah,
mainly lesbians. There was only
okay,
two gay guys in the group, so
okay,
it was more women
sure.
in it.
I also have heard
So they,
stories where they show people images of heterosexual couples and nothing happens, and then they show images of gay pornography, and they zap you when you see it to inflict physical pain into
I've
you when you
heard
see
that,
those
but I've
images.
never had that. Those were some of the live away programs like
Okay,
Desert Stream
got
and
it,
some of those programs.
got it, got it. Well, I'm happy to hear that you
I never
haven't.
went that far. I
Good.
didn't. I was like,
Good. So you've experienced, but you experienced enough. And then,
right.
yeah, tell me about that transition. What called you to want to be more of a leader in this small group at Exodus?
It wasn't, it was more like, it wasn't like I've said, oh, I want this. It was more like, oh, you got this. Because it was, there was a problem where a lot of the guys that join these groups, especially the Christian groups, they're just looking for Christian boyfriends.
Oh, funny.
And there was this one guy who was just a predator,
Mm,
and I called him out on it, and because he was really hassling this one guy, and I stepped into it and ended it
mm,
because the guy he was hassling was really upset about it and he didn't know what to do. And so by me stepping in, they said, "Oh, John could be the men's group leader." So it wasn't like I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't
it was
saying
looking for you.
right. So basically that, and I would hope that anybody would have done what I did.
For sure. I was talking to a good friend who is a gay pastor, and he told me, this is a little off topic, but I'll get there. He said, that which you are seeking is seeking you. That which you are seeking is seeking you, for better or for worse. So, whatever you're putting out in the universe, that thing is also seeking you in return. So, I'm not super surprised that you were kind of handed this leadership position because you were so seeking approval, the
Right,
fitting in, being needed, right? And also in the context of this quote unquote hetero, uh, same sex attracted but hetero lifestyle, right?
right.
So so you become this leader, and you told me on the phone, I am jumping a little bit, but talk to me about that time that you were interviewed on TV. What was that like?
Um, that was with a Catholic organization, because as I was going away from Exodus, I was transitioning out of Exodus and going to Courage, which was the Catholic equivalent, where they don't believe um, uh, you don't have to pray the gay away. You can be gay, but celibate is
Mm.
more their philosophy.
Yeah, we call that side B today. Have you heard that term?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so side
So
B is feeling like you are gay or you have same sex attraction, but it's a sin to act on it. But just for
right.
anyone not
So
that don't doesn't know.
yeah. So that's I started going because I knew this wasn't working. Exodus was not working.
Hmm.
These people weren't working.
Right.
I could see just everybody in Exodus. They were all like, and they would tell me, I'm struggling. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm dating this one. Just like, okay, but you are a leader. Why?
Mm.
And you just saw that it was all. It was a house of cards that was just falling apart.
Hmm.
So then I said, well, this ain't working. So maybe I'll go over here. This way I can maintain my marriage, um,
Hmm.
and somehow I ended up on Catholic TV. You know, uh,
And did you at any point in time, if I may, like I
and
don't know
in
how to,
somebody's book. I'm a chapter in somebody's book.
like
People have
a
seen
conversion
that.
therapy book or what?
Uh, there was this woman on Catholic TV, Jeanette Benkovic. She had a TV show called The Abundant Life, and she was the one that interviewed me.
Okay.
And then she wrote a book. People that have um, experienced God. It was it, and she had like 8 or 9 chapters of people that have experienced God.
Okay.
So I was one of her chapters, and it was basically just a rewrite of my interview.
So in this interview, I'm assuming that you're promoting like the side B lifestyle. Am I right?
Right. But I also argued with the guy on the. You had so many of these people. that were uh, part of Exodus, whether they, this guy was a psychologist, and he was saying, well, that's because you didn't play sports
Yeah,
as a
okay.
kid. And
Okay.
I'd be like, and they called it the sports wound.
Oh
And
my
courage
God.
actually has weekends where people go to learn how to play sports, and you're going to come out of there straight. It's,
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. You throw balls at my face, I'm going to be gayer, John. Okay.
but it was just it was the absurdity of that stuff too.
Absolutely. They're
It's just
grasping
like,
at straws.
and the guy's arguing with me. I said, I don't think that has anything to do with it. That, you know, yeah, I don't like group sports, but that didn't make me gay.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right. Did and again, I don't know how to say this without sounding like an asshole, so I'm just going to say it. During this interview, during those conversations where you're kind of publicized a little bit, in the back of your head at any point were you like, this is all bullshit. What am I doing? Like, was there a voice like that or not yet?
not yet, because I
Okay.
wouldn't have done it if I
Okay.
felt that way then. I would have not done it.
So let's
Um,
talk about that. What was that transition like for you?
it was just that uh, I don't know. It was just that it wasn't going away, and my depression was getting worse and worse and worse. And I had been sober like 20 years, and the depression was still there. It was constant there. I went to therapy. I was, and while I got a lot of good help out of Christian therapy,
Hmm.
my whole life changed when I went to a secular guy. You
Say
know,
more. I hear you.
because I was and the one therapist she was good. She said, John, she goes, you have so many issues. Let's not even talk about the homosexuality. She goes,
Right, right.
that's the least of your problems. Uh, but there was still that always that reinforcing that if I get fixed, if I fix myself, then I won't be gay,
Yeah,
which is what we were told.
yeah.
Constant.
Right.
If you fix the sexual abuse, if you fix your daddy issues, you fix your mommy issues, if you fix all these issues, you'll all of a sudden wake up being straight. And I look at it now and going like, how did I ever think that was going to work? You know,
But
but
again, pause, be nice to yourself and be
right,
nice to people listening because some people might be, I'm not judging you right now, but some people might be
right,
in that place of thinking, how did I not know? Like, let's
right,
break this cycle of putting shame on top of shame. The reality is you just didn't. The reality when I was engaged to a woman, I could beat myself up over that. I'm not proud of that, of dragging her along like that. But the reality is I genuinely thought in that condition, I believed in that conditional love that you did.
right,
If I do this, then I will be good, right? We're
right,
victims of that society.
right, right.
So I don't even know where to go from here, John. Where were we? So years. So the therapist, the secular the non-religious therapist was like, hey, let's talk about these other issues. And then how did you break the cycle of that being inside B, that conflict?
It was just like, there's nothing I can do that's going to change this.
I've tried
It's
everything, right?
there's right. I've done it. And it's not like I tried it like 50% or 75. I tried it 180%.
100%.
Everything
Yeah.
I did, I didn't do 100%. I always gave way over 100%. I said, this isn't working. There must be something else. And I saw all these other people, they're all happy and everything. And then it was my kids were grown, and I said, well, I really don't have to be around to protect them anymore. And that was
Hmm.
part of it.
Yeah, sure.
But I stayed so long because I had so much financially, and I wanted, we had a house, we had cars, we had, everything. And um, so I was just going to live as a non sexual gay man. Uh, and that was, and I was fine with it, but I was learning how to stand up for myself also. Like my
Mm-hmm.
therapist go, you didn't leave them. They left you because they don't know who the hell you are anymore.
Hmm.
You weren't that people pleasing, oh, whatever you want, dear. Because I
You've
always felt so much
changed, right?
guilt.
Yeah. Of course.
I've always had, I would let her do anything she wanted
Of
just
course.
because I felt so bad of what I had done, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, no, this is not going to happen anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was in the past. This is now. Either, you know, get with the program or not.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but and I was gonna end it, and then I ended up with cancer. So then I felt like I needed to stay. Not, I don't know. It wasn't really for me. It was just like somehow I took it as God's sign to stay with her. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
uh, and it was, but it was right after that. Like I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't. And it was, again, it wasn't like I just left. It was, I felt so trapped. I didn't know what to do. And I thought the only way out was suicide
Hmm.
again, and I attempted suicide. I don't know. My therapist goes, I don't know how you're not dead yet, but you're not. And I left the house and I just never went back.
Hmm.
Uh, so, and I just, and it was, I don't even want to say it was the gay thing. It was just I was so miserable living there. I
Yeah.
was living everybody's life. We had a prayer group at my house once, and they wanted me to share, and I was just like, nope, I'm not in the mood to share, and you should respect that. And they kept on going. Then my wife goes, "Will you just share already?" And I said, "You really want me to?" and, and she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well," and I said to everybody in the house, I said, and we were in my house, I said, look around. I said, I have a really nice house. My wife's really pretty. I have 4 great kids. I have a BMW in the driveway, another late model, Jeep in the driveway. I said, I have everything, right? Except I built this cage around this house. I said, but guess what? To keep things out, I said, but the only problem is I'm the only one that's stuck in here.
Hmm.
And I said, I am trapped in this house.
Hmm.
And it was just like, you've never seen so many people leave the house so fast. And you're like, oops.
Oh
Uh,
God. Never ask him again.
and I just turned to her. I said, are you happy? Are you glad I shared?
Hmm. Well,
Uh,
you were being
because
authentic. It's like the bubble burst finally.
right, it was just like I can't, because well, most of the time, yeah, all right,
Mm-hmm.
but it
Mm-hmm.
was just like I couldn't, and it was relatively very soon after that it was over. It
Yeah.
was,
I
um,
I, I want to ask you a question because you and I have talked about
sure,
this a little bit. And I specify this by saying you and I have talked about this because I wouldn't assume this, but you expressed to me that you did feel a lot of guilt for kind of leading that small group and kind of living the life you
right,
did and helping
mhm,
others to live that life into shame and out of authenticity.
right.
How did you forgive yourself?
um, I don't know if I ever really have, and
Hmm.
it wasn't, and I look at it like, and I don't want to be like, that it wasn't my fault, but I was a victim of the whole process
Absolutely.
myself.
Yeah.
And I was just passing on what was passed on to me.
Yeah.
And at the time I did it, I didn't do it intentionally,
It's a
knowing
cult
it
of
was wrong.
innocence, like we said.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't, because if it was wrong, I wouldn't have done it.
Sure.
If I had felt uh, it was wrong, then I wouldn't have done it. And that's one of the reasons I left Exodus, because I was like, this is all bull.
Yeah.
This is I am
Yeah.
not going to be part of this anymore.
Yeah. Well, again, you're exemplifying the quote I opened the show with, which is that we're not here to be right, we're here to get it right. So once you knew and had new information, you can't unknow what you know. So then you
Right,
were able to make decisions. And so perhaps you moved through that guilt simply by changing your ways and by changing your actions and
right,
by breaking free out of that prison that you had put yourself in your own house.
right.
And so where is Mr. Evans today?
Where am I today? I'm happily partnered. We have a house in Florida. We moved here from Oregon. Um, I'm no longer depressed. I haven't been
Hmm.
depressed in 10 years,
Hmm.
which was major for me. Um, I'm doing what I wanted to. I'm retired from accounting and I became a massage therapist. So everything's good. You know,
Wow. What a beautiful.
I have four great kids that that I'm very happy that I had. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't look like, oh, everything was a mistake. It
Of
was,
course not.
those were, a lot of good things came out of a long time of, um, you know, being married and stuff like that.
There's one person listening to this who has children, who has tried to pray it away, who is married, and who feels as if they also have everything but are absolutely miserable, trapped in their own prison. And they are very moved right now by your story. I want you to talk directly to them. What would you like to say to that one person?
Uh, these are dying. Um, what would I like to say to them? That I don't know. I hate giving people
You don't have to give advice either. It can just be that
just
yeah,
let the process happen. If you start feeling things, I also felt very guilty about having my wife trapped for all those years with me. She could have had a much different life,
right,
also.
right,
Um, but if it gets to the point where you're that miserable, no one's going to be happy. Your
yeah.
wife's not going to be happy. Your kids aren't going to be happy. So you have to, or I had to make the decision to get out um, and live my life, not everybody, because I was living everybody else's
You were
life.
fitting in. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I also
I
think
was
that
living.
yeah. I was going to say, John, I think that, I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that question. The reality is it doesn't really matter how you answer the question because your story is enough. Your
Right.
story exemplifies, the truth, the good news, which is that you can start over, you can make amends with yourself, with your ex-wife, with your children, with the people around you. It's
Right.
never too late. I have clients as young
Right.
as 21, and I have clients in their late 60s. I have a client who came to me when he was 67, John, and he was recently 6 years ago divorced from his wife, has two daughters with her, but had never been with a man. And he said, I want to be with a man. 2 weeks into the program, that happened for him. By the end of the program, he was in a
Right.
relationship. My point is, listener, dear listener, you are worthy of love. You are worthy of belonging. You do have to make the decision. It is up to you.
Right.
But my goodness, is it worth it? And John, I think your story is exemplary of that.
Right.
So thank you for sharing your story.
Right. Well, thank you.
This has been fun. John, it's a pleasure. I'm so glad that you're in this community with us. Thank you for your story and for your time. And y'all, I will talk to everyone next week. Oh, before I let you go, if anyone wants to contact you because they have questions about or need advice, are you okay with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can they reach
Sure.
out to you?
Uh, Probably email. You have the email address.
Yes,
Uh,
you want to give it here and then I'll put it in the show notes?
okay. It's John John
Yeah.
LD Evans at
Yeah.
yahoo.com.
Beautiful. I was just looking at it too. Okay, awesome. Thank you, John. Thank you, listeners. We love all of you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.